The tennis world trembled in shock as Carlos Alcaraz got brutally eliminated from the Miami Open by Korda. Then, what he said in the press conference afterward is the story that will still be relevant in 6 months when someone shows him a clip of it at Roland Garros and asks how he feels about it now. He called his situation a bit annoying. He said his opponents had more to win than to lose against him. Then he would continue to say he is excited about the clay season. He described, across 20 minutes of answers to questions he has now been asked in various forms for 3 consecutive weeks, a psychological landscape that is more complex and more human than the world number 1 position usually permits its occupant to reveal in public. Understanding what Alcaraz actually said, rather than the headline version of it, requires reading the full press conference rather than the clips that have been circulating. The annoying confession is the one that generates the most reaction, because annoying sounds small and confessional coming from the best player in the world. But the full context of what he was saying when he used that word is considerably more interesting than the word itself. He was asked about the dynamic of opponents raising their level against him, the same dynamic he described at Indian Wells as the target on his back. And he said it was a bit annoying, but that it had to be accepted and that he had to keep going and try his best. Then he said the one thing that reframes the whole complaint and that the coverage has consistently missed in favor of the more quotable version. He said, luckily he had a lot of weapons and a lot of things he could do on the court to try to make his opponent uncomfortable. He said he just could not find that way on the day, but that he knew from now on they were going to play like that, and he just had to be ready. The word luckily is the one that tells you where he actually is psychologically. He is not helpless in the face of the elevated opponent phenomenon. He knows he has the tools to solve it on a different day. The annoyance is not about the problem being unsolvable. It is about not having solved it on this specific day in this specific match, which is a completely different and considerably more manageable frustration than it has sometimes been reported as. These were his exact words. Obviously, when you're winning tournaments and you have a great win-loss record, I'm feeling they have more to win than to lose in those matches. They are playing without pressure almost. They are going all out. It's not really good, to be honest. It's a bit annoying, but you have to accept it. You have to keep it going and try your best. The psychology in that paragraph is the psychology of someone who understands the dynamic with complete clarity and who is simultaneously frustrated by it and accepting of it. He is not confused about why it happens. He knows exactly why. When a player ranked 36th faces the world number 1, the ranking gap means there is precisely one way the match can go that is expected, which is that the world number 1 wins, and one way that represents a genuine surprise, which is that he loses. For the lower-ranked player, the pressure structure is almost reversed. A win is a bonus. A loss is the expected result. Playing freely under that structure is not a tactic. It is the natural output of a pressure environment where the match has nothing to lose. Alcaraz has been explaining this to reporters for 3 weeks. He was explaining it in the press conference on Sunday night. He called it annoying because it is, genuinely, annoying to be on the receiving end of the psychological advantage that your own dominance creates for every opponent you face. The 3-week arc of the complaint is the part that contains the most information about his actual psychological state. At Indian Wells after the Rinderknecht match, it was a half-joke about playing Roger Federer every round, delivered with the lightness of someone 16-0 for the season. After the Medvedev loss, it was sharper, about the target on his back and getting tired of it, delivered with the weight of a first loss attached. In Miami against Fonseca, he wore the Brazilian shirt, said he loved the atmosphere, and won without drama. Then Korda happened, and the press conference produced the most direct and sustained version of the same observation he has now been making for 3 consecutive weeks. The trajectory from lightness to exhaustion to reset is the trajectory of a player who has been carrying the same psychological awareness for the duration of the hard court season, and who, by the time Sunday arrived, was carrying it without the winning streak to buffer its weight. The reset language in the second half of the press conference is the part that deserves as much attention as the annoying confession and has received almost none. He said he was probably going to go back home, that he was looking forward to it, that he wanted to stay chilling with his family and his friends for a couple of days. He said he did not know how much his team was going to allow him to rest. He said all of a sudden he just had to get back on track, back on the court. He said the clay season was around the corner. He said he had really good tournaments, he was just excited about playing. And then he said the sentence that the changeover conversation had been building toward all afternoon. My mind right now is to take some days off, to reset my mind, reset the batteries, and be ready in good shape for the clay season. That sentence is not the sentence of a player in crisis. It is the sentence of a player who has correctly identified what he needs and who has the self-awareness to name it publicly rather than deflecting with platitudes about working harder and coming back stronger. He needs rest. He said so. He has been playing at the absolute highest level of professional tennis without meaningful recovery since January. The Australian Open final went 5 sets in 3 hours. Doha was 5 matches in hot conditions. Indian Wells was 6 matches before the Medvedev loss. Miami was 2 matches including the changeover conversation where he said he couldn't take it anymore. The battery metaphor he used is not metaphorical. He is describing a physical and psychological resource that has been depleted across 19 matches in 10 weeks. And that requires rest rather than more tennis to be restored. The specific self-awareness he brought to the post-match press conference is one of the qualities that defines him as a public figure, and that makes every post-match conference worth reading in full rather than in excerpt. He was asked how he was going to approach the clay season given the losses to Medvedev and Korda, and his answer connected the psychology of the recent defeats to the specific opportunity that the clay season represents, rather than treating the question as a negative one requiring a defensive response. He said he was excited about playing those tournaments. He was describing genuine anticipation rather than managed optimism. Clay is where his game finds its most natural expression, where the high bounce rewards his heavy topspin forehand, where the slower pace allows the explosiveness of his movement to operate at its most devastating, where his title collection across the last 3 years is more concentrated than on any other surface. He was not forcing the excitement. He was telling the truth about how he felt about what was coming next. The comparison between how Alcaraz processes difficult stretches and how the narrative around him interprets those stretches is the most interesting dimension of the Sunday press conference. The narrative, constructed from the changeover conversation clip and the annoying confession headline, is that something has gone wrong. The world number 1 is struggling. He is tired and frustrated and losing matches he should win and saying things in changeover conversations that champions are not supposed to say. That narrative is built on real events, but it has drawn the wrong conclusion from them. What is actually happening is that a 22-year-old world number 1 is experiencing the specific accumulated pressure of sustained excellence at the top of professional sport, and is being entirely honest about what it feels like from the inside. He is not pretending to be fine. He is not performing resilience for the cameras. He is saying exactly what is true and then describing exactly what he's going to do about it. That combination of honesty and clarity about the path forward is not a symptom of someone struggling. It is a symptom of someone who knows themselves well enough to manage their own situation without either catastrophizing it or minimizing it. The broader psychological portrait that the 3 weeks from Indian Wells to Miami has drawn is one of a player who has been operating at maximum intensity across the full range of his competitive and emotional resources simultaneously. He has been competing at the highest level of the sport. He has been carrying the expectation that comes with the world number 1 ranking, the record-breaking season, the career Grand Slam, the Forbes lists, the Fonseca comparisons, the Tony Nadal radio appearances, the fake quotes, the changeover conversations. He has been processing each one of those things publicly and honestly, rather than through the managed communication strategy that most elite athletes use to protect their emotional privacy. Being the person who says what he thinks in every post-match press conference means that what he thinks is available for interpretation by every analyst and every social media account and every journalist who covers the sport. The annoying confession is genuinely what he thinks. So is the excitement about the clay season. So was the changeover conversation. They are all coming from the same place, which is a player whose relationship with honesty has not changed since he won his first Grand Slam at 19 and said exactly what came to mind in every press conference then too. He is going home. El Palmar is waiting. The grandfather is there. The table is there. The family that his grandfather described as having given a lot to the club, and that perhaps was why Carlos came from there, is the family he is going back to reset with. He will eat his mother's food and sleep in his childhood room and spend a few days not being the world number one, just being the kid from the village in Murcia who grew up on clay courts his grandfather built. Then Lopez will call him back to practice, and the clay season will begin, and he will arrive in Monte Carlo as the defending champion and the world number one, and the player who after 4 days at home will have reset the batteries and recharged the weapon that the annoying confession was describing running temporarily low. He said it was a bit annoying. He also said he had a lot of weapons. He also said he was excited. All 3 sentences are true, and they all describe the same person at the same moment. He is 22, and he is the world number one, and he is honest about what both of those things cost at the same time. That is not a crisis. That is one of the most mature and human things a great athlete can do. The specific thing he said about the pressure dynamic that generated the least coverage is also the most operationally useful piece of the press conference for anyone who wants to understand how he is going to approach the clay season. He said for the next matches, he would try to play better on those moments, on those points. He said he would try not to let his opponents stay in the match all the way through. He said he would try to push them to the limit even more. This is not a vague aspiration about being better. It is a specific tactical intention about closing matches earlier, about using the weapons he acknowledged he had in ways that create decisive margins, rather than allowing opponents to stay competitive deep into sets and matches, where the pressure-free structure of facing the world number one generates the kind of performances that Korda produced on Sunday. He identified the pattern, he named the correction. That is the thought process of a champion, delivered in a press conference that the narrative has decided was about a crisis. There is also the specific detail about the reset and his family that the psychology analysis requires to be complete. He said he was looking forward to going home. He used the phrase looking forward to, not going home for recovery or going home to work on the issues. He said he was looking forward to it. He wanted to go home. The changeover conversation was the raw version of the same feeling. At the bench, he said he wanted to go home now, immediately, in the middle of a match. In the press conference, he said he was probably going to go back home, which he was looking forward to. The rawness of the changeover version and the composed version of the press conference are the same desire, expressed at different levels of emotional regulation. He wanted to go home at 5-all in the second set, and he still wanted to go home 2 hours later in the press conference. But by the press conference, he had regulated the feeling enough to express it as something he was looking forward to rather than something he couldn't take anymore. The distance between those two expressions of the same feeling is the distance between a 22-year-old in the middle of a difficult afternoon and a 22-year-old who has had 90 minutes to sit with the afternoon and process it. Both versions are genuine. The press conference version is the one that is easier to hear because it is delivered in the language of calm reflection. The changeover version is the one that is harder to hear because it is delivered in the language of raw exhaustion. Neither version tells you more about who he is than the other. Together they tell you everything. He is going home. His mind is to reset. His batteries need charging. His clay season is around the corner. His weapons are there. The annoyance is real, The excitement is real. He said all of it in the same afternoon. The person who can say all of those things in the same afternoon, with the same honesty and the same clarity, is not a player who has lost his way. He is a player who knows exactly where he is and exactly where he is going, and who is honest enough to describe both without making either of them smaller or larger than they actually are. The press conference on Sunday night in Miami is going to look different in 6 weeks. When he wins Monte Carlo, or when he reaches the Roland Garros final, or when he lifts an 8th Grand Slam title, someone will play it back, and the annoying confession, and the reset batteries, and the looking forward to going home will all be the setup to whatever comes next in a story. Alcaraz is 22. His story has a very long way to go. What he said on Sunday is one paragraph of it, the paragraph that starts with a loss and ends with a return to the table where his grandfather fed him lunch when he was 5 and 6 and his parents were working, and where the batteries get charged the same way they always have. The fake quote that went viral on Sunday night deserves a brief but clear mention because the psychology of why it spread is part of the same story. A fabricated quote attributed to Alcaraz began circulating suggesting he had expressed a motivational crisis that went considerably further than anything in the actual press conference. Jose Moron of Punto de Break, who was present at the press conference, went to social media immediately and confirmed the quote was completely fabricated and had not been said. The fake quote spread quickly because it fit a story people were already building. The story of a world number one whose public expression of difficulty in a changeover conversation was the leading edge of something darker and more serious underneath. The actual press conference contained nothing of the sort. It contained annoyance, clarity, self-awareness, tactical precision, emotional honesty, and genuine anticipation about what comes next. The fake quote needed the crisis narrative to work. The real press conference refused to provide it. What the fake quote phenomenon reveals about the public conversation around Alcaraz is that the appetite for a crisis story around the world number one is currently running ahead of the evidence for one. His record is 17-2. He is world number one. He said he was a bit annoyed and looking forward to going home. The narrative wants more than that, and so the fake quote supplied what the real press conference would not. The real press conference supplied something more interesting, which was a 22-year-old world number one being completely honest about the experience of being the world number one in the specific moment when the experience was most difficult, and then describing exactly what he was going to do about it. He said it was a bit annoying. Then he said, luckily, he had a lot of weapons. The first sentence generated the headlines. The second sentence is the one that matters. There is one more thing the press conference revealed that has been almost entirely absent from the coverage, which is the specific way Alcaraz described his approach to the tight moments that decided the match. He said he had to see it from that point of view, wanting the point of view of the match having been decided by small margins, rather than by a comprehensive difference in level. The phrase, "see it from that point of view," is the language of someone who is actively reframing a disappointing result, rather than being consumed by it. He is not telling himself the loss does not matter. He is telling himself where to look within the loss for the most useful information. The tight moments, the 30-30s and the deuces, and the break points he did not convert. Those are the specific pieces of data he is carrying into the clay season as the areas where improvement will make the difference between winning and losing the same kinds of matches against lower-ranked opponents playing above their level. That reframing capacity is itself a psychological quality that requires acknowledging, because it operates in the same press conference as the annoyance and the reset language and the looking forward to going home. He is simultaneously tired, honest about being tired, accurate in his diagnosis of what went wrong, specific about what he needs to fix, and genuinely excited about what comes next. Those are not contradictory states. They are the simultaneous layers of a competitor who has developed, across 3 years at the top of the sport, the specific capacity to hold multiple emotional truths at the same time without any one of them collapsing into another. The clay season begins in 6 days. Monte Carlo on April 6th. He is the defending champion. He is the world number 1. He is 17-2 on the year. He said the batteries needed resetting, and he said he had a lot of weapons, and he said he was excited. On the evidence of every previous clay season, all 3 of those things are going to be visible in the results before the end of April. Will Alcaraz be able to stage a comeback in the next tournament? How does he prevent Jannik Sinner from catching up? Let me see what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next